In John chapter 10, Jesus made a huge statement. He was talking about the religious rulers at the time, and he outed them as fakes and phonies. He said that they were bad shepherds. At best, they were hired hands who did not care about the people, but only cared about themselves. You have to admit, Jesus had a way with people. What's interesting is that in John 30, he turned around and he said, I and the Father are one. Now, you have to think like a good first century Jew to really understand the significance of what he just said. First of all, they didn't call God their father because that made you equal with God. In that culture, that was going to be the case. In addition to that, he used the neuter tense in the Greek language, which meant that he was saying he had the unity, the essence, the nature, the attitudes, the desires, the direction of the Father himself. Probably, it's kind of a weak illustration, but the best thing I can think of is marriage, where the two shall become one flesh. That's the reality. The whole point was this. He made it clear they were fakes, they were phonies, they were bad shepherds, and then he turned around and said, I am God. Now, just for the record, they got the message. As a matter of fact, they got the message so clearly they picked up a large rock. Now, you know, in our society, you've heard the commercials of American Express. American Express, don't leave home without it. In the first century for the Jews, it was your rock, your large killing rock, don't leave home without it. You see, they had reasons back in the Old Testament why they were able to put someone to death. All right, a number of things. 6 of them were actually on blasphemy, which is what this one was about. In addition to that, they had stuff like adultery, and they had a defiant child that wouldn't listen to instruction. It had to do with stuff like taking something that was under the ban that God put there. We saw Achan back in the Old Testament, even homicide by an ox. But very clearly here, this one was about blasphemy. And since they made it clear Jesus, being a man, made himself out to be God, they wanted to give him a reward for that, and that was a big rock to the head. What's interesting about this is that as you look at this, one of the things that you can see is that back 2,000 years ago, in the first century, Jesus, in fact, made the whole thing about him. He made it clear he was not just a good moral man or an incredible teacher or a prophet like some of them wanted to say that he was. He rejected all of those out of hand, and he said, I am the Son of God, I am God in the flesh. He, in fact, was the issue. Now, the reason this is interesting is because Jesus left no middle ground. Right? I mean, there was no other choice here. While the leaders talked about God, Jesus said, I am God. While they talked about theology, meaning just let's discuss the issue of God, he said, let me introduce you to a personal relationship with God by being God, the Son of God, and paying the price for those sins. So all of a sudden you had this connection with God that you didn't have in any way with the leaders. Now what's wild about this, guys, is that what Jesus said here was either the truth or a lie. It was either factual or it was deceiving. Well, because we can prove God, Jesus in the Bible, we actually know that what Jesus said here was the truth, that there were only the options that he gave, and that was specifically him. Those 2 options were these really bad people that were not leading well, or the one true God. What's interesting is that over 2,000 years ago, Jesus made himself the issue, and he still, here in the 21st century, makes himself the issue today. Jesus is looking at us going, guys, this is the option you have to get that relationship with God. It's me. And through that process, he basically looks at us and says, so, are you in or are you out? Please understand, he desperately wants you to be in. Hope you'll consider Christ.